To Nayan's question.
Well, I want to know what his question is.
Allahu Akbar. What is it, Nayan?
They're like, so for death, I feel like
For what?
for death,
Death?
the topic of death,
Death.
I feel like I can't fear death without like we were talking about earlier how with like I'm paraphrasing, but with like uncertainty, like you don't really have fear. For
It's
it,
true, yeah.
and I'm not certain what happens after death. I'm not really. Also, like when you're by like I can't really fear it. I don't know what's going to happen next. So,
Okay.
things like scare me more than death. My perception of death different from I feel like death for me, like
Okay. So let's just talk about fear. And then hopefully I'll remember to connect it to death and homelessness and all that. Is that okay? So let me tell you a very simple story first, and then we'll start with featherweight, and then we'll slowly move to super heavyweight, if that's okay. On my mother's side, their teeth, it's always been bad. And I inherited my teeth from my mother's side, not my father's side. And so when I was younger, because of, the lack of technology in the field of dentistry, whenever you had a toothache, they would just pull your tooth out. And so, and then because of just bad genes, I just have bad teeth. In the sense that, I just have to fill them like once a week or so. And so when my kids were younger and I had to brush their teeth, there was always, as I was brushing their teeth, this fear inside me that I hope they didn't inherit their teeth from me. Also, I was very careful to make sure that I brush everything and I floss everything because I didn't want them to end up like me. It has taken me a long time to appreciate what it means and how it feels to have a healthy set of teeth, not only in terms of eating or biting and chewing and digesting, but also in terms of not being around toothache as much. Because toothache really is an awful place to be. Okay? So that fear kind of motivates me to protect my kids as much as I can. I also study the American culture, at least the culture that lives in Oakland. I drive, and I see a lot of tents, highway, the streets. I see trash. I see people who look bad, who smell bad. I listen to their language. That language looks bad, smells bad. Their body language is no different really. And I say to myself, okay, what sort of an environment do I want to create for my children? Because if I'm going to be 70 soon, I don't want to look at my kids and hear them using bad language. I don't want them to act in ways that are immature and infantile. So these fears, which come from a good amount of understanding the culture, the environment, allows me to kind of look for ways to build a castle for them, very much like, You know, you have to understand the Buddha story before he became the Buddha is very, very profound. Because why the hell would parents spend all this money building this environment, creating this environment for a kid so that he could never come close to anything that's unpleasant in life? I mean, that's great. You don't see homelessness, you don't see pain, you don't see poverty. Because as parents, you look at your child and you say, my kid can't really process just yet what drugs are, what pornography is, why people are violent, why people are homeless. I don't want my kids to be contaminated with those things just yet. You know, when you're 25 or 30, if you've been educated mentally, intellectually, then yeah, you can see homelessness and connected to the fact that politicians suck, people suck, the mayors suck, you know, everything that is about social life sucks because it fails to protect people who are in desperate need, that we have lost our ability to empathize, to sympathize, to care, to be compassionate, to be mindful, to be aware. We're just far too callous now. Right? So you try to protect your kids as much as you can. It's because you understand the culture, you understand life. Now, how often do I come to my classes and I look at young people who are failing because they haven't done assignments, whatever the reason may be that causes them to perhaps be a candidate to fail the class? I always go on this rant that you need to stay in school, you need to finish your classes, plagiarize. I don't care what you do, man, just pass these classes. School sucks. Instructors are not good. You know, assignments for the most part are just busy work that burdens everyone. Nobody walks away with understanding or wisdom. You know, people just want to pass the class and go their way. But midway, they come to realize, well, you know, the class is boring, I don't want to go. And you have the very natural, organic element that lives inside all of us, which is sloth. You're just lazy. You know, and laziness is partly because of privilege. The other is because you're far too casual with life, which is the outcome of being privileged to some extent. And so what I fear most is what happened to me, which is I failed high school, I failed college, I wasted a lot of money, I went into a lot of different relationships. They all went bad. And it's because I didn't really understand. I didn't understand anything. And when you're young, you don't understand anything. And when you don't understand, you're not fearful of things. You know, it's like someone going to, and you're about to like be intimate with someone and say, oh, by the way, yesterday I was diagnosed with AIDS. You say, oh, well, yeah, I love Cristiano Ronaldo. You think like he's a soccer player because you don't really understand what AIDS is. So what you do is you guys become intimate. And then after a week or two or three or four, you begin to realize you're not feeling well. And you go to the doctor and say, yeah, you're positive. And God forbid if it blossoms inside you, you'll just die in 2 years. So you can't really fear things that you haven't understood. You can't really fear things that you haven't really never experienced. You can't fear anything that has never caused you pain. Now, the problem with fear is that if you don't understand it, if you don't observe it, if you don't examine it, it's going to repeat itself. You really think that I was never 17? You really think I never was in relationships? That I never wasted money, never wasted classes, never wasted tuition? Of course I did. I did all of those things. The only difference between me and perhaps you is that first, I am 3 times your age, second, I've had experiences that you haven't. I remember my failures really, really, really well, and I want to make sure you don't repeat them. You don't become like me. Where at the age of 40, you say, I should have finished school. You know, I'll do whatever I can to make sure that my job remains protected, but I will harass you from day one of the semester to make sure you stay in the class, to pass the class. You're not immune. You know, you will make mistakes. Some of them are going to be really, really awful. It's that fear that inspires me to harass you. Now, the problem is you're going to walk away from the class saying, I have an instructor who harasses me, abuses me. But you fail to see the flip side. I harass you because I know that there's a good chance you may sign up for the class, do a couple of assignments, and then just come there and just sit, forcing me to just fail you. If you're going to be here for 16 weeks, at least, goddamn it, pass the goddamn class. It's a stupid class. Just pass it with a C. Why would you want to spend another semester at Laney College in Oakland? Pass this class, apply to Yale. Maybe you'll get lucky, you'll get accepted. You'll go to Yale, get your bachelor's or your master's, you'll come back, you'll have a great job, you'll make great money. And then you can pay your mom all the money she spent on the strip for you. And instead of her waiting for this money to go into her pocket at the age of 80, you can do it when she's 50. But when you don't have perspectives, when you don't fear the things I say, when you don't listen to the things I say, well, I've had students who were in my class, 2004, when I first began Laney. 2004, man. You know how many of those students I have seen this semester alone? At least 15, 20. What are you doing here? I'm going to finish. That was like 15, 16 years ago I had you in my class. You haven't finished yet? No, life got in the way. How old are you now? I'm 47. You're never going to finish it. It's finished. I mean, you're done with life, man. Home Depot is where you're going to work. Yeah, man, go use the restroom, do whatever. Go for a walk. Eat coffee shop. Fear. The other thing that fear does, it allows you to move very cautiously in life. Because most of the things you do in life, you do in darkness. You just don't know much about them. Now, if you want to know what it means to live life in darkness, in other words, in the unknown, in confusion, absence of knowledge, when you go home tonight, turn all the lights off. And then start cooking. Start walking around the house. See how far you'll get before you force yourself to turn on the lights. And I will assure you that when you want to chop something, you will need lights. If you want to cook something, you will need lights. And that's how life is. None of us in this class have answers to all the questions out there. None of us have answers to all the problems out there. So what are we doing? We walk in the dark. If you want to walk in the dark, man, at least, go out there and get to know things a little bit. And then before you want to do them, sit back, reflect. And while doing it, be mindful, be observant, and be very, very, very cautious. Almost 50% of people who live in America make under $40,000 a year. We can't survive on that much money. It's impossible. It means 1 out of every 2 students in this room will remain in this poverty status. There's a good chance that you may fall into it. But because you're young, and because you're single, because you're not married, because you don't got kids, because you don't pay for rent, utilities, food, you can't know the value of any of these things. Which means you're not going to have an intimate relationship with money. And when I tell you there's a good chance that you may fall into this poverty rate, you say, oh no, it's never going to happen to me. Of course it is. The other thing you need to know is that, I don't know if you remember, maybe you were just far too young, You still are, but you were younger way back then, most of you. In 2007-8, something really interesting happened. All these powerful people behind closed doors, they wanted to just become richer. They wanted to make more money. So they played games with our lives. First you have these banks giving these loans to people assuming that their life is really settled, built on rock. It's never going to crack. It's never going to fall apart. Within just a couple of months, tsunami hit the financial aspect of life. People began to lose their jobs. And then when you don't have a job, you don't have money. When you don't have money, you can't pay your mortgage. Before you know it, you're evicted. You buy a house for $1 million, and all of a sudden you have nothing. Even if you were to move through life very cautiously, you have politicians playing with your life. And we've talked about this many, many times. I look at this classroom. Not a single one of us in this classroom, myself included, not a single one of us in this classroom are white Americans. Which means what? People are going to look at you weirdly. You need to move through life cautiously because you're being looked at as the other. That's just the way things are. You want to use bad language, you'll pay the price for it. You want to dress bad, you'll pay the price for it. You want to fail school, you'll pay the price for it. I am reminded of a poem. I think it's by Sa'di of Shiraz around the 13th century. ترسم که اشک در غم ما پرده در شود وین راز سر به مهر به عالم سمر شود گویند سنگ لعل شود در مقام صبر آری شود ولیک به خون جگر شود. Sometimes you fear that there are things inside you that all of a sudden you may erupt and you may say things, do things that you may regret because they fall on the wrong ears and you never get understood. So fear, it governs a good amount of life and you need to have it. Before, when religion was a very important component for human beings, it was the fear of God that kept you from smoking. It was the fear of God that kept you from drinking. It was the fear of God that kept you from just having casual sex. It was the fear of God that kept you from filing for divorce, from spanking or hitting your kids. When society was different and people actually had a good amount of shame in them, they would not come to class dressed badly. They would not come to class speaking badly. They would not come to class, or just walk around the lake, being so casual about who and what they are. And that shame forced them to speak properly, to act properly. But when you get rid of all those things, then you have, whatever. And when you live in a culture of whatever, then you just deal with trash on a daily basis. Because whatever is as good as whatever is not. Plato is as good and valid and valuable and meaningful as Hugh Hefner. An artist like Leonardo da Vinci is just as good as George W. Bush. They're both artists, I suppose. Someone who lives in a monastery and chants Gregorian chanting is as good as Beyonce. When you live in a culture where every trash is found to be valuable. Anyway, so any other questions? This is the last day. You know, you guys are making it way, way too heavy. Is there anything I want to know about you? When you asked this on the last day, can I be honest or can I just, or no? Let me be honest. Well, you know, at my age, the only thing I have is honesty. Nothing else works. My body's failing me. So anyways. Imagine you go to Costco. Imagine you go to Costco and there is a sofa set that you see that you like. And you say, I'd like to buy this for my mom. And you take out your cell phone to see how much you have in your savings. And it's $20 you have in your savings. And you say, well, let me check my checking. And it's -50. And then you go to the manager and say, I really like those sofas. He says, well, did you pay for them? Because I can have people just put them on your truck. So here's the thing, you know, I don't have any money. Can I tell you a little bit about myself and why I don't have any money? Maybe they'll inspire you to give me the sofas. And the manager says, the truth is, I don't really care who you are. I don't care what you are. This is not therapy. I don't really care what's happening to you and what has ever happened to you. This sofa costs $1,500. Do you have money? He says, no, but let me tell you what happened to me when I was 2, then 5, then 25, then 95. Listen, this is my shop. I'm not here for your story. I am a shop. You are a guest in this shop. For 16 weeks, I've been giving you merchandises. Now you want to come to me and say, I really couldn't buy anything that you offered me because of A, B, C, D. So, you know, I'm not really interested in why you can't. I'm not really interested in your past. Can you buy what I just am offering you? If the answer is no, the answer is no. I don't care about the rest. Let me also say another thing, because you may have found my comments to be somewhat offensive as to why would an instructor look at students say, I don't really care for you. I have lived your life. I have been 15. I have been 18. And I haven't been spoon-fed. I worked graveyard. I was a janitor, dishwasher. I still wash cars. This last weekend, I spent about 30 hours at the car wash. I've also been to school, and I know how awful it is. I have lived your life. There isn't anything you can tell me that I don't know. I want to give you things that will protect you for the next 50 years. That's my job. And I'll do as much as I possibly can to open certain parts of you so you can kind of, at least if you can't understand, at least take a look at them. And have those things just live inside you for a week or 2 or 3. What do you want to tell me? That possibly, maybe you came from a broken home, maybe you came from an intact home, you know, that you had 5 relationships or 10 relationships or no relationships, that sometimes you suffer from confusion, sometimes depression, Maybe you're addicted to porn. Maybe you smoke too much. Maybe you drink too much. Maybe you don't know if you should choose John or Jack or Jill. No, there is no way. Yeah, there is no way. Her life is finished. Um, you know, you have two kinds of outlooks about anything in life. You can be realistic, and when you're realistic, there's a good chance that you're going to be dark. I don't like when instructors go to a class and say, "Oh, you guys are all great. We have great students. They're all ready to learn. I am here to educate." I think that's very optimistic. It's just a foolish way of doing business. You know, it's like looking at a politician and saying, "Oh, he's a saint." Politicians, they're all corrupt. At least majority of them. I think a more realistic way of looking at life will protect you. If you're a 20-year-old young woman, there's a good chance, 99.9% chance, that if you go out with a 20-year-old young man, he will disappoint you. If I was 20 and you were 20 and you came from a background that you were roughed up for whatever the reasons, no doubt you will disappoint me. And I will disappoint you because there comes a point where I just simply will say, I don't really care, I'm just going to walk away. That's a realistic way of looking at life. And that's going to protect you. Because tomorrow, just in case you go out there and find someone attractive, and they happen to be 21, you say, well, in my class, we talked about some of the important things that people need to have. A good relationship with their parents, they don't smoke, they don't drink, they have a good job, they're going to school, they're disciplined. These are the foundations that you need to have a relatively decent relationship. There are no guarantees, but they're important to have. And all of a sudden, you become realistic. Yeah, he looks really good, he talks really good, but he's a loser. You walk away. You know what that's going to do for you? It's going to protect you from becoming emotionally, physically, intellectually entangled. Because you know what happens when you fall in love with the wrong people and they can't nourish you the way you want to be nourished. You lose sleep, you lose rest, you lose comfort. Interiorly, you're always confused, angry, frustrated, anxious. You have no idea what the hell is going on. You want to stay, you want to leave. You want to stay, you want to leave. Who the hell wants to live like that? Now, you're talking about 50, 60, 70 years ago, and it was normal for people to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 kids. It really was normal. Times have changed now. Life is really, really complicated now. Especially if you happen to be an immigrant from Vietnam, Cambodia, Iran, Yemen, and you come to this country at the age of like 35. And then you have 5 kids. You have nobody here. Back home, you could find money from your parents, from relatives, from friends. Here, no one's going to help you because everybody's broke. And then it's also a different culture. You don't find like pornography everywhere back home. It doesn't work that way. You don't find people walking around drunk. You don't find people walking around high. People don't talk trash the way they do here. Your kids are protected. Here you come as an immigrant, you say, man, how the hell am I going to protect my kids from all this nonsense? The truth is you can't. And your husband needs to have 2, 3 jobs just to pay rent and put food on the table. I mean, that's a difficult life, you know? Oh, come on, Abigail. The moment you have a child, you have caused enough damage, for a few lifetimes. Are you kidding me? Morally, how many times have we gone through this? You don't have children because you're a good parent. You don't have children because you're financially stable. You have children because sex is fun. You have children because you imagine that things will just work out. Allahu Akbar. Have you never watched the Judge Judy? Well, go home today and spend 5 of your hours watching Judge Judy. What happens? I hired so-and-so because he spoke well, because he told me he's got 50 years of experience. He started working, all of a sudden, my house is falling apart because he doesn't know what he's doing. You imagine things, and then you move forward because of imagination. I mean, parents' job is really, really, really difficult. You're dealing with so many unknowns, not just about society, not just about your child. You begin to understand how little you knew, how incompetent you have always been. It's just that when the moment you have a child, now you realize how incompetent, how ridiculous, how stupid you really are. As an immigrant, you come to America with 5 kids. The hell, man. I mean, unless you got millions of dollars in your bank account and you've stolen it from your people, then you come here, then fine, you can buy yourself a nice little mansion on top of a hill, send your kids to private school, and be like Carlton. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry? Money brings everything. You want to be Jesus Christ? Abigail, go find a mountain of money. Once you have that security, then you can go live in a cave. Just in case you don't like the cave lifestyle, go back into life. You have money to have fun. You need a support system. You need a savings account in everything. The most important savings account you need is the following. You ready? If I'm 20 and you're 20, and you and I get together, and you fall in love with me and I fall in love with you, you better have a good savings account, Abigail, just in case our relationship doesn't go well. If you were to walk away still being in love, or if I was just to walk away and you still being in love, make sure the savings you have will protect you from completely being shattered, being chronically depressed. How do you create that savings? Know a thing or two about human nature. Know a thing or two about relationships. Know a thing or two about desires. Know a thing or two about sex. Know a thing or two about boredom, about satisfaction, about being 20. These are your savings accounts. And if you don't have them, you will get broken. And you will remain broken for a long, long time. And then you know what's going to happen. You're going to get to be a little older. You would want to be in a relationship, but there is so much fear inside you that you will hinder yourself from moving forward. You will always have doubts. You will always be so cautious that you won't even get involved with anyone. Have savings. That's why you go to school. Not for the grade, to understand things. Yeah, and then.
What do you know or
about intergenerational trauma. And
I don't know what that is. Hold on, let me backtrack.
or,
Yeah.
I mean, like, do you believe, or, I mean, I don't really know much about it, but I'm really interested in trauma that lives in the body and in, like, DNA and is passed through, if that is all, like, skeptical or it's just.
Two things. First, I don't really know much about DNAs and how they store experiences and memories of things. So, having said that, it would then suggest that I have a very limited knowledge and experience. And so, whatever I say about this particular question will have a great many fallacies. They're incomplete, insufficient, maybe even profoundly flawed. What I do know is that if you're a woman and pregnant, and if you drink excessively, if you smoke excessively, marijuana, or hard drugs, it's going to impact the life that's growing inside you. And they're going to, when they come out, they're going to have certain tendencies, desires that have been created by you while they were inside you. As a woman, if, for example, you only eat hamburgers, when your child comes out, the taste buds in your infant will most likely just gravitate towards things like burgers. If, on the other hand, you know the science of what it means to be a woman and what you eat, how it impacts the life inside you, new studies have shown that you eat pizza, you eat burger, you eat taco, you eat vegetables, you eat all sorts of things. Then when your child comes out, they have a very rich palate, that they have a tendency of experimenting with all sorts of dishes, foods, do you see? There have also been studies where people have had kidney transplants, liver transplants, heart transplants. And if you happen to be a woman in need of a kidney, and let's say you're 50, and some teenager got into a car crash and they passed away, when they transplant the liver to yours, and just in case this kid happened to have enjoyed a lot of sugar, have had enjoyed a lot of alcohol, the moment that kidney is now part of your body, and if you've been on a very strict diet, you've been like a health guru, you don't eat sugar, you just eat vegetables, all of a sudden you have this new urge from nowhere at the age of 50. You've never had sugar in your life, for example. You've never had an ounce of alcohol, but all of a sudden you want alcohol. And there are stories about this. Now, trauma is, having said all of that, okay,
You want to ask what this question.
having said all of that, if, for example, you came to my class and you said, my grandfather was depressed, my father is depressed, my mom is depressed, all my sisters are depressed, I'm depressed, that's why I couldn't turn in any assignments. For example, because depression is very traumatic, it impacts everything in your life. As your instructor, I wouldn't care. Because I know that even if you're depressed, there are these moments. And 16 weeks in the classroom, hour and a half each class, you're going to experience moments where there are openings. Something about you lights up. You begin to see, you begin to think, you begin to understand. And that's enough motivation for you to say, Amir, can I talk to you after class? And I say yes. And then if it is in my power to create a physical space for you, where you can overcome depression little by little, and it's a gradual process. And this is a burden on me, not so much on you, because you have to come to my office at 5 in the morning. I have to keep inspiring you. Then you have to come to my class and ask your questions. Then it's my job to call you and say, come over for dinner. It's a time I want to spend with my family. But because I like you, because I like the intimate relationship that you and I have built, I have to protect this opening that's happened inside you. Why? Because I was 117. I know what it means to fail classes. I know what it means to fail life. I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. I don't care what has happened to you before. I mean, that's too much stuff, man, on my shoulders. I don't know what to do with any of them. You know, if you were to come to me and say, well, I'm Persian and I was in the war, I'm black and this is America. Okay, what the hell do you want me to do about that history? What matters is you're here now. You know what has happened for the past 1,000 years? I can't do anything about that. You're here now. What the hell do you want? You want $10? I'll give it to you. Don't smoke it. Go somewhere and buy yourself a nice sandwich. You want me to deal with your addictions and your this and your that? Come on, man. I'm not Jesus Christ. Just a regular, infantile, ridiculous man with a few degrees teaching in a class for 16 weeks. What the hell do you want from me? Or anybody. You know, soon you're going to have a companion. She doesn't care about where you come from. She just wants to know you're a decent man. You can take care of the house and your kids and all that stuff. You can't keep saying, well, my father's a drunk. Who the fuck cares, man? Jesus Christ. Hey, what is it?
How can you create an emotional state for a relationship and still?
I mean, you can't. Because, you know, when you're young, you're still growing, you're still learning, you're still experiencing, experimenting. And then you also need time to process everything that's coming into your life. It's what, I mean, when you're young, you're like on an earthquake zone. Things about you are always shifting and changing. You are not stable. You're not dependable. You know? Look, if you were born 80 years ago in this country, no one would allow you to change the way you do today. At the age of 2, you'd be responsible to clean the house for your mom, to wash dishes, to do laundry, to help out with the yard. And you couldn't just spend your money. When you're 10, you go to school. You fail, you get slapped. You can't go out there and smoke, you can't go out there and drink, and you can't go out there and have casual sex. At the age of 17, you get married. Where do you live? Next door. Your mom comes and visits you. You have a support system. And you look around, no one in your community divorces. The concept of divorce does not exist. Religion is important. Only death do us part. You don't go to a therapist. You don't need a therapist. It doesn't exist. Life is not meant to have fun, man. Life is just tough. You plow through it slowly. So when a woman or a man walks into your life, what do they have? You have a 20-year-old who's stable. You're not going to say, am I a man or a woman? Am I hetero, homo, bi, trans? What the hell am I? None of those things exist. You're solid because the culture is solid. Now, there is nothing. The most simple things of life are now questionable. I assure you, in about 50 years' time, you go out there, it's 9 in the morning, so no, it's actually night. Well, you know, 9 in the morning has always been categorized as morning. Used to, but now it's night. And I have no doubt there'll be a group of people who will try to legalize that you can no longer call morning morning. And when you lose the basic, the most simple structures of life, well, what the hell do you do with people? And, at the end of the day, you have no choice but to just kind of bow to the way the culture is going. If a student doesn't want to be called a he, wants to be called a she, well, what can you do? Just call her a she or him a she. That's just the way things are. If someone says, no, it's sunny, but it's actually raining. Okay, it's raining. Because your job is at stake. Hang out with solid people. The only problem with that is that at the age of 17, they'll burden you with ideas and constructs and behaviors that you may not be able to carry because they're just too much. But if you can, it'll be good. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've taken too much of your time. It's been a great semester. Thank you for sharing with me who you are, what you are, your history, your background. It's been good getting to know all of you. Really, it's been really good. Sarcasm aside, just in case I have said things that may have offended some of you, my apologies. Take care of yourselves and your lives. Above all, take care of your parents. They're good people, regardless of, some of their flaws. Stay in touch. I teach next semester. So, remember, if you get an A in this class, it means nothing. If you get an F in this class, that also means nothing. If you get an A, it just means that you were able to string some words together very cleverly without really understanding. If you fail this class, don't worry. Life will give you ample of opportunities. You can retake the class with someone else who's probably much better. And, So listen, take care of yourselves. Don't get sick. Have a good time. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.